And we're back. So in the last video we covered the graph editor and how it's used. Today we're going to learn about the dope sheet. And by now you guys should know how to already switch. You just got to press Control and Tab. Let me turn on my screencast over here so you see. There we go, Control Tab, Control Tab. So we're going to be talking about, let me press A, numpad on the keyboard. And we're focused here. So the dope sheet is another very useful animation tool in Blender. First, let's open another window and change this one into the graph editor, just so we see the difference. And here we don't need the modifiers, so I'm gonna press N, and I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. And there we go. So here we have the graph editor, here we have the dope sheet. So right away you can see that the dope sheet displays all of our keyframes on a horizontal line, just like the timeline. And it's much easier on the eye than all the crazy curves you see on, well, the curves on the ball aren't too crazy, but if it was an actual character animation, it'd be a little crazy. But it's just visually easier to look at, and we can actually close the summary, and then it just becomes a single line. And so you kind of get access to all of your keys in this single line. Now, as we know, the graph editor is very useful for advanced tweaking and visualization, to adjust your curves and to change your keyframe handles, etc. The dope sheet, on the other hand, is great for keyframe manipulation without having to sift through these complex curves that you see in the graph editor. If you want to adjust your timing quickly, you can just grab and move. Or you can scale parts of the animation if that's what you want to do. It's just easier access to all of your keys, and it helps you make sure that you select everything instead of some channels or certain curves or certain keys. You have a better visualization of all of that. Now, that being said, again, you can definitely move keys inside the graph editor as well, but you have to select all those keys and then move them, and you might miss some. Maybe there's another curve down here that you missed. Maybe it's a channel you didn't select, but it's just much easier to do so in the dope sheet. So again, we're gonna keep the summary collapsed, so everything's just inside the summary. And we are actually going to switch these two to be pretty much the opposite of the graph editor. We are going to turn off only selected. So now we have the keys on all of the controller of the rig we have selected. So not just this controller, we see the keys for everything here. And we're also going to turn on show hidden. So we see all hidden controllers as well. So we can see the keys on those as well. So keep in mind to use this workflow, use the dope sheet when you're shifting animations on our characters. If you have any properties or parent space switching keyed, now those are big words. If you're an animator, you know what those are. If you're not and you're going to be taking the animation course, then we will cover that, don't worry. But all those properties and options that show up down here on some of the controllers that we saw on Max, those we're working through them, and it's a little bit harder in Blender, but some of those might not show up in your timeline when you're moving stuff. But if you have the visualization that you see here selected, you can clearly see those, and you can shift those inside the dope sheet, and those properties will shift as well as your controllers. And these are the properties I was talking about. So for example, on Max, on the cog, and some of the other controllers, we have properties for you to switch. And even on here, for example, on the Max's UI, if we go to the arm and we want to switch the IK, FK, these attributes might not show up in your timeline. And so when you're shifting animation, these attributes might stay without you knowing that. So you want to make sure that you're shifting everything in your dope sheet where everything is shown with those proper settings. So let's go back to the ball animation. And again, in the dope sheet, you can either move by pressing G. You don't have to worry about GY, GX because you can only go left and right. The dope sheet is mainly just used for shifting animation and not adjusting the animation. It's just for timing, for you to get the timing right without missing any keys. You can also scale keys, but keep in mind that you scale towards your playhead. That's this blue line right here. So let's go ahead and put the playhead at frame 1. And I'm going to press S and scale towards our playhead. And now when we press the animation is much faster. a cool thing we can do just to show you is, now I know this is a dope sheet video, but I'm going to double click the Y, select all of the Y, and you know what? Let me select everything. I'm going to select everything, all the keys, by pressing A, and I'm going to press A on the graph editor channels, A to select all of the controllers of those channels, and then I'm going to press Shift E and make it cyclic. And now the animation cycles, even though our animation ends on frame 13 and not 23, it just continues. But that's how you make a cycle. I just wanted to show you guys really quickly. Now, again, the closer you bring the keys together, the faster the animation is. The farther you put them from each other, let's expand this as well, the slower the animation is, because it takes longer to reach those keys. It takes more frames. So here in the summary, we can open that up, and there we have access to the different controls, which then you can also open up, and then you have access to the channels in those controls, just like the graph editor. All right, now if you did expand all of your channels, usually when you don't have it expanded and you just click on a key, the entire column gets selected. But if you have the channel boxes expanded, clicking on a channel won't select everything. So if you want to select everything in that entire column and you're selecting on a channel, you can hold Alt and left click. That way everything in that column is selected again. But we're gonna go ahead and collapse this. Another thing you can do is press a key and then press L, and that way that entire row is selected. Now we did just select everything, so let's go ahead and go back to the channels, and here if we select a single channel and we press L, the entire row gets selected. So L is for row, and you can hold Alt to select the entire column. And just like the graph editor, A selects everything, and X will let you delete keyframes. You can refer to the Blender Hotkeys PDF to become more familiar with the most used hotkeys for animators. Again, those handbooks are gems that you guys should all be checking out. Simona is the one responsible for creating them, and she has done a fantastic job. They look super, super well done and super enjoyable to go through. So, the dope sheet is very simple, and it doesn't provide too much information about what's happening. But it does offer some visual cues as to the keyframe interpolation. For example, you can see that when you change a curve to constant by pressing T, let's go ahead and do that. Let's select this row and press T and change it to constant. Now a line appears that lets us know that the pose is being held until the next key, which means we're in step mode. So you do have some visual cues. You can also change the handle to vector, for example, and then they become square instead of circle. So you can get used to the visual differences in the dope sheet if you'd like. It'll probably help you along the way. And I would highly recommend using the dope sheet only for broader changes and to easily move keyframes around. And then you can utilize the graph editor to manipulate the curves and gain finer controls over your animation. So this one was a short one, and we're pretty much done with this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.